wonder if those are the ones to maybe see where the like kind of nibble at the edges there and then help get the offense to where it needs to get to. So that's kind of my thoughts on the Blue Jays offseason. But what about you? Let me know either in the chat if we're still connected or in the comments after the fact. Let me know where we think we are at right now with the Toronto Blue Jays and their offseason. Again, if you missed any of this on the live stream or you just want to bring Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go, you can catch us on podcast. Just search Couch Potato Diary on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods. Also, again, I always feel weird doing these, but we do have a tip jar here. It is in the link of every description for YouTube and all the other platforms we put the videos on, and it's in the panels on the streaming sites and all of that. Again, just watching, it means the world to me. Just you dedicating your time to see my mug on your screen or just having my voice in your ears through podcast form means the world to me. But if you do have a little bit extra to help out, that would be greatly appreciated in the tip jar. That is in the link of whatever you are consuming this on here today. So that is the talk on the current Blue Jays. What about Blue Jays of the past? Jeff Kent is on his way to the Hall of Fame. Carlos Delgado almost was, and Barry Bonds just probably never will. Let's go through baseball's very unique situation in the Hall of Fame discussion. Look, I understand that I am probably, it's obvious amongst all the different votes that have happened over the years that I am in the minority here. I think it's insane that Barry Bonds is not in the Hall of Fame and won't be going in the Hall of Fame. And I get like, oh, well, the steroids and the this and that and the other thing. This is my official stance on it, and it would be very difficult to talk me off of this. In my opinion, Major League Baseball had their chance to catch Barry Bonds. He had the entirety of his career. If you thought him taking steroids and making those runs for the home run chase and everything like that, if this was this big thing that was going to just belittle everything that he has done, then you catch him while he's doing it. And it's not like he all of a sudden just like ballooned up and we're like, oh man, guy just horse meat probably. Like people kind of had an idea that this was happening, but never tested positive or anything like that. And so to me, that was your chance. Once his career is done, we don't get to legislate that now. We have whatever paper he has turned in. We had the chance to catch him cheating off of someone else's paper the entire time that the exam was done. But once they hand it in and we just put that 100% on there or whatever it is, that's it. We don't get to go back and change it. Now, he has solidified his case. He has handed in that resume that he is giving us. So I just don't love that we are legislating all of this after the fact. To me, if you tested positive during your career, then you're out. You're out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're gone. But if we catch you after, if you happen to go through a career the length that Barry Bonds went and a peak that Barry Bonds had, if you're able to go through and not get caught, congratulations, you made it to the finish line. Here's your Hall of Fame plaque, sir. Like, if you want to catch him, you had an entire career to do it. But to now legislate it after the fact, after he did all of those things that he did, and we're just supposed to just be blind to the fact that, oh, no. He wasn't the best hitter I've ever seen in my entire life. He wasn't probably the best baseball player I've ever seen in my entire life. He wasn't the best power hitter of a generation. He wasn't I didn't watch Buck Showalter intentionally walk him with the bases loaded in the 9th inning of a 2-run baseball game. Never saw that. You either ban the guy like Pete Rose or you let him in, because this in-between thing is dumb. If we're just going to accept that he had a Hall of Fame career, then we're voting on that. If we're not going to vote him in, then he shouldn't be on the ballot to begin with. Like, this stuff is just beyond me at this point. So yes, like A-Rod, nuh-uh. Andy Pettit, sorry, homie. Manny Ramirez, you out. Can't do it. Can't win with you. Because positive tests, that feels like a pretty easy, like it happened during your career, we caught you. Kind of an IQ test, but we got you. So, sorry, you're out. But we didn't catch Barry Bonds, so he's in. McGuire, same thing. Didn't catch you while you were playing, so I guess you get to go in. Good job. Congratulations. You got us. We'll try to be better next time. So that's just my thoughts on the Barry Bonds of it all. But Jeff Kent going in, don't want to overlook that, although I just did. But Jeff Kent going in, it's a fine choice. Like I was never the biggest Jeff Kent fan, but I do have to accept that this was a Hall of Fame career that this guy had. And it's funny. One of the things what we hear about Bonds is, well, he's not getting in because he was kind of a dick to the media and those sorts of things. It's like, man, Jeff Kent had a little bit of asshole in him too. let's not really sugarcoat this thing a whole lot. He wasn't winning Mr. Congeniality a whole lot on the baseball teams that he was on. But that shouldn't matter. To a certain degree, it shouldn't matter. He wasn't an asshole to the point where he did anything illegal. So he gets to kind of get in. But it's a solid pick. All-time leader in home runs for a second baseman. He had a very, very high peak, winning an MVP. I think it was 2000 or 2001. And then the post-Apex run was pretty solid as well. It is interesting. Like, his best years all were San Francisco. Came up as an interesting prospect with the Blue Jays. They traded him to the Mets. We'll talk about that trade in a second here. But they trade him to the Mets, and then he leaves for Cleveland for a couple of games. And, like, fine with the Mets, like a good second baseman for the Mets. Leaves for Cleveland, and then playoff run with them, goes to the Giants. And when he gets to the Giants, just takes off. Like, he is that dude for the entire time he's with the Giants. And then he leaves, goes to Houston and then the Dodgers. And still good, like still like 3-4 win player, but not as like dominant as he was with San Francisco. It is just like his entire peak is exactly when he was with the Giants. He and Barry Bonds, a terrifying 1-2 duo. Rich Aurilia had some moments there as well, but like Kent was that dude for the Giants for a long time. And so very deserving of getting into baseball's Hall of Fame. And for me, you can see the Blue Jays cap in the background. Obviously, that is the team that I am most familiar with and the one that I root for. A very interesting place in Blue Jays history because they draft him in a round that I don't think exists now. I think it was like a 28th round or something like that. And he starts to kind of make his way up through the Blue Jays system, but the biggest contribution he had to the Blue Jays was he was the key piece that went to the Mets for David Cone. And it is very rare that you don't regret trading a Hall of Famer, but obviously Cone was massive in getting the Blue Jays a title in 1992. Like that 1-2 punch with him and Jack Morris, just kind of what the message it sent to the Blue Jays clubhouse and to everyone else. That meant a lot. And so, yes, would it have been great for Kent to be there kind of post-World Series years? Yeah, obviously. But second base was a little occupied at the moment. You know, you weren't looking at it in 92 going, oh, well, Robbie Alomar is going to be gone in a couple of years, so here comes Jeff Kent. Like, yes, it would have been great if it could have played out where Kent's development just slowed a little bit, and he could come in and say 95 when Alomar is off to Cleveland and Baltimore and all those places. And Mets as well, I guess. But it would have been great to have that just go from one to the other. Doesn't always work that way. By the time 95 came around, he's already a 3-win player. And you're not just going to keep that in the minors and be like, well, hey, maybe Robbie's going to be gone one day. It doesn't really work like that. So, yeah, it would have been great to have not included him in that deal. Like, the other kind of rental move the Jays made the next year in 93 with Ricky Henderson was sending Steve Karsay to Oakland. Now, Karsay had a long career, but a long career as like a 4th, 5th guy or a middle relief dude. That one you feel a little bit easier with as a rental, and then Ricky Henderson comes up and does what he does with the Blue Jays, and off he goes. But still, interesting note in Blue Jays history anyway, with Jeff Kent. One who was certainly more tied to Blue Jays history is Carlos Delgado, and he's getting closer in this contemporary ballady thing that they do. He was around like 15-18% away. My thought with him, with Joe Carter, and with Dave Stieb, if those three guys were Yankees, they're Hall of Famers, no doubt. When you look at Delgado's numbers specifically, 473 career home runs, his 162-game average over a 17-year career is a 280 batting average with 38 home runs and 120 runs batted in. He had an OPS plus career of 132. He was a beast. He was an absolute beast. The fact that he had years where he drove in 137 runs with the Blue Jays teams and hitting in front of them is like Eric Hinsky and Shannon Stewart. All due respect to Shannon Stewart, and I don't think my timeline lines up on those guys being there at the same time. Regardless, the fact that he was able to, oh yeah, Jeff Fry is hitting in the 2-hole, and Delgado is still putting up 125 RBI a year is insanity. It's too bad. Like, the lack of playoff attention hurts, and it hurts a lot, I think, in this case. He only had one playoff run. It was a good playoff run, though. Like the Mets in 06, very, very close to getting to the World Series, losing to the Cardinals that year. Delgado hit .353 with 4 home runs in 10 games. And if that Mets team goes on to the World Series and wins it, then I think you can make a really strong case that like Delgado probably gets a little bit more attention. Like just that one World Series ring maybe rounds us off a little bit more. But my one thought for the team that he was the closest associated with for the entirety of his career, the Toronto Blue Jays, I want the Blue Jays to hype this guy more. I understand, like it is, for obvious reasons. We love the World Series teams. We love 15. We tolerate 16. We enjoy it. But we need to reach up, like my cat is behind me, and try to open that door back for Carlos Delgado. I'll let you out in a sec, Babs. We're okay. It's okay. They need to open that door for Carlos Delgado and celebrate this guy a little bit more. I think Dave Stieb as well. Like, I think the Blue Jays have done a good job. Like, all the first pitches with all those guys, that was great. Bringing them in for those moments. Like, the World Series teams and the 15 and 16 group. I think they've done a good job of celebrating them. And it's not like there's a lot they need to celebrate in the in-between. You're not going to have, welcome back, Troy Gloss. Like, you're not doing that. But Stieb, I think the kind of pre-World Series guys, like the Bell, Barfield, Mosby's, all of them, and then Delgado specifically in that middle part, they did pretty good. Like Halliday's a Hall of Famer, retires number, all of that. But I think there needs to be a little bit more celebration, a little bit more reminder from the organization. Like, hey, this guy was pretty gosh darn good for a really long time for this group. I think he needs to be celebrated along with the 2 World Series teams and the playoff teams from 15 and 16, just a little bit more as well. But what are your guys' thoughts? Do you think I am completely out to lunch on any of this Hall of Fame talk? Let me know in the comments below or in the chat for those of you who are watching live, or at least still able to watch live after it seems like things went a little bit sideways on us here for a couple of moments. Keep in touch with everything going on with me and Couch Potato Diary on social media. I am at PrimeTimeKlein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. Posting a few more things from the show and a few more updates as we head toward the Christmas season and the new year. All right, going to continue the podcast here in just a second, but obviously my cat wants out of this room, so a slight pause, and we'll be back in a second with more Couch Potato Diary. And we're back. So, coming up now, it's not an area I venture into on this show a lot, but I do wish I did, because college football is made for sports talk. With like every other thing we talked about, are the Chiefs done? Are they not? What this, that, and the other thing. You don't have to worry about that in college football, because we have to talk about quality of opposition, quality of wins, 3-loss team, 2-loss team. Their format is set for debate, and that debate has come powering through this weekend after the college football playoff was revealed. It does feel like this was a tipping point for a lot of college football fans, with a few different debates happening. So, Let's try to fix it, and let's try to make sense of a weird situation, but a really fun one to talk about in the college football landscape. Didn't mean to do that, but it worked. So, college football has forever been a very fun sport to talk about and follow. Like I do, like the passion, the pageantry, everything with college football. Love it. 10 out of 10, no notes. But this year, it does feel like a lot of people have hit a tipping point with the Lane Kiffin situation from a couple of weeks ago where Ole Miss, he was just like, yeah, deuces, I'm out of here. I'm not coaching a playoff game with you guys. And that whole situation, and then talking about the calendar and why, like, he's kind of put in that situation that he needs to be, needs to make that move and get out of there when he did. And now the college football playoff and all the debates that are around it. And I think a lot of this comes down to, for me, just too many teams involved in this. It's a 12-team playoff, and there's different caveat. There's going to be an extra one next year that would have got Notre Dame in it this year, which is another situation we'll talk about in a second. But 12 teams, you get the highest ranking of division winner or of conference winners that get to go into a few spots. Teams get buys. There's at-larges, whatever. I think it's too much. And I think you eliminate a lot of this conversation if you kind of trim it down a little bit. 2 was not enough. 4 was bordering on I think 4 was probably perfect. And it was the debate that I had at the time where I like to have more teams involved and more teams with an opportunity. But how many years have we talked about there being 8 teams that would be qualified to win a world champ or a national championship? It's just not. It doesn't happen that much. And 12? 12? No, we don't have that. So to me, 8 is the sweet spot for me. I get like the Pac-12 is still a thing. They're the Pac-2 right now, so I'm not going to include them in this. 4 conference champions to me, like the 4 big ones, right? The ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and I forget which one I said off the top, but whichever one of the ACC and SEC I didn't mention off the top, them. So the 4 conference champions, I would have 2 group of 5 champions getting in, and then 2 at-large bids. And that completely eliminates the situation like we had with Alabama, because now winning that conference championship game is vital instead of what has played out. So with the Alabama situation, I can really genuinely see both sides of this. On the one hand, having a 3-loss team get in does feel a little bit ridiculous. And kind of getting lost in all of this is the BYU situation, where they were coming in a top 11 ranked team in the college football rankings that they put out every single week, which is a bigger discussion. But they were, according to those rankings, they would have been in. And then they go play in the conference championship game and they lose, and now they're bumped out of the college football playoff. So I can see where you get a little bit frustrated by that if you're BYU. And now look, like we lost our conference championship game too. Why is them with 3 losses getting in over us with 2 losses? I also, though, understand, and why I have sympathy for the BYU point, I also understand where Bama is coming from. If you're going to punish Alabama for losing in their conference championship game to Georgia, which they did, and knock them out, and put Miami, who didn't even play in their conference championship game, maybe should have. Weird setup that Duke wins it. But still, like, if you're going to punish Alabama for losing in the conference championship and put in Miami, who didn't even get to their college championship, I can see where they would get a little bit frustrated with that sort of a situation. That's why I think my 8 is perfect, because now you essentially make the conference, you don't essentially, you do. The conference championships are a qualifier to get into the college playoff. Instead of, well, if they lose, then maybe they can still, and if they win, maybe just take it all out. Conference champs in, and just a couple at-larges, and that's it. So that if you have a situation like you have in the Big Ten title game with Indiana and Ohio State, then where they are obviously the top 2 teams in the country on resume, on all of that, then you still have an opportunity to put them in. And it's not, well, hey, Tulane gets a spot over Ohio State. No. They were more deserving, trust me. You still kind of budget for some of that, but not for as much as, well, Alabama with 3 losses, they're able to get in. At the end of the day, I think Alabama being in, God, I really do see both sides, but I I don't love it. They've lost twice to Georgia and another couple of just like questionable loss or even questionable wins, sorry, along the way. I think if you don't want to be put in a spot to lose like that and have your season end in that conference championship game in that way, then don't lose earlier on in the season. Be more impressive against Auburn at different time or at the time where you played them in the Iron Bowl and everything like that. I feel like you can still take that conversation away from people. It is just this year, specifically because of how it all lined up, you can really make a very compelling case that Alabama deserves to be in. And you can very easily see again where everyone thinks there's Alabama and SEC favoritism going on as well. On the Miami situation, and again, there's a bias here. I'm a fan of the U, that they are, as much as I pay attention to it, they are my college football team. And so thusly, I am biased towards Miami and against Notre Dame. So it is kind of funny that the Catholics versus convicts battle at the beginning of the year comes into play now, and they are having this kind of discussion between the two sides. This one is a bit more of the committee's doing and their screw up than anything else. Miami getting in over Notre Dame makes all the sense in the world because Miami played Notre Dame and they beat them. Like that one is a straight line, 1-to-1. That should be obvious, right? Like, you can hear Texas's debate about, well, like, we scheduled a tough team at the beginning of the season, and we lost to them, and now we've lost a couple other games, and now we're out of it. It punishes us for scheduling these good games. But if Ohio State was right on that bubble, Texas kind of loses a bit of that argument. Now, I still think they could have something, but still, for Miami and Notre Dame, you played each other. Like, this is to decide who the 12 best teams are to have a shot at the national championship. If you lost to one of them, then, and they're right on the bubble, then you just don't get in. Like, that is obvious to me. So the problem, though, is that the Fighting Irish were ahead of Miami in the rankings before last week's games. Neither team played, and Miami leapfrogs them into the playoff. That is where you can very easily see Notre Dame's frustration with all of that, where neither team, and it's not like any of the teams that they lost to played and looked impressive or not impressive or anything like that. Miami's losses were to Louisville and SMU. They weren't playing. And Notre Dame's was Miami and Texas A&M, and both of those are playoff teams. So, like, I don't get where Notre Dame... I don't get why Notre Dame was put ahead of Miami to begin with. And if you're going to do that, don't let us bully you into changing it the week after when nothing's changed, really. So that was their own fault for just not putting in enough of the thought of that head-to-head when you made the rankings a week ago. And then when you made the bracket, just like, Miami should be in there anyway. So it is really tough to make the case for Notre Dame. Like, again, they both had 2 losses, and objectively, Notre Dame's losses are better than Miami's losses, right? Because Notre Dame has lost to 2 teams that are now in the playoff. The problem is, if you are trying to convince me that Notre Dame's loss against Miami is good because Miami is a really good team deserving of being in the playoff, well, we're debating against Miami. So you kind of lose that debate too. So it was entirely the process that was screwed up. And then Notre Dame getting all boo-boo face and being like, we will not play in a bowl game in this upcoming season now. Like, that's just, like, Get over yourselves. Get over it. I understand that the rest of the college football bowls have become the NIT, and no one really wants to play in any of them, especially these teams up at the top. But you are now even if a bunch of your seniors weren't going to play and a bunch of your draft eligibles were going to rest, you are still denying the players on your team a growth opportunity in a big spot, a unique experience of playing in a bowl game, and all of these different things. Like, I feel like it is really, really pouty from a Notre Dame team that a couple of seasons ago won a lot of national favor with being this kind of plucky underdog team to now just get boo-boo face because the committee didn't like you and had a weird thing with their rankings. Like, again, be upset. But to just sit out bowl season now, I think is really sketchy, and really, it rubs me the wrong way. So, yeah, I don't like that. But ultimately, like, this is the way this played out is why college football sets this up the way it does. Is they want the freedom to do exactly what they did. My scenario of the 8 teams and only 2 at large, and all the other spots getting earned through championships, college football is set up in a way where now, like, you can't just do a season and standings and everything for every team, right? Because of how many teams there are. You're not going to have a 134 game round robin and figure out who the top teams are. You do have to break it up into conferences, but then to be able to win your conference, that should be enough. However, because it's been set up in this way for forever with rankings and everything like that, and now it's this playoff with some loose criteria here and there, they have it in a way where they can pick the matchups, and it allows you this freedom when you have it being a little bit loose, where, yeah, the top ranked conference winners will be in there, but we get to pick the other ones, and maybe the merit doesn't always matter, but we're going to make it look close enough. If you get a team that is a big enough draw that's close, they're going to get in 9 times out of 10. They want the freedom to be able to put that in. They don't want to lock into conference champions only, because you get a year like this where Indiana's a conference champion and Duke's a conference champion and all these non-power schools are winning these titles, and Ohio State's on the outside looking in, and Alabama's on the outside looking in, and Texas is on the outside looking in. You get all these different things playing out in this way. This gives them the freedom to still put their draws in. It's the same reason why boxing and MMA doesn't go with a standings-based format. It's their own rankings and their own wins and stuff like that, so that if something is close, we can use the tiebreaker of, well, who's going to get us the more money, who's going to get the bigger ratings, who's going to do all of that. So it is the way it is designed for reasons exactly like this. So they can cherry pick. Alabama gets to go in over, pick a team, right? And they get to go with Miami in a spot over maybe a more deserving team, or this, that, or the other thing, right? So they don't want to lock themselves into the most fair way of putting together a tournament, because then some years you don't really get to pick the superstars, and that they get to do this here. I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy. I just think that the facts are they want to be able to at least break the tie with the sexier option going forward for them. But either way, college football, just full of talking points. Really, really, really fun to just kind of break everything down in the college football landscape. So if you have any thoughts on that, I'm sure some Notre Dame fans are pretty pissed off about things right now, and a few fan bases are upset that Alabama gets in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Appreciate you tuning in to Couch Potato Diary. Make sure while you're here, hit the like button, and then right beside it is the notification bell. Just hit that so you know when videos are coming out from Couch Potato Diary, so you can get right on the jump with a lot of the great stuff we have here on the channel. Let's move into the combat sports game, shall we? As UFC 323 goes down over the weekend. 2 gigantic upsets, 2 new champions, 2 very different looking fights, and a lot of questions to ask coming out of the UFC's final pay-per-view in the States. Let's break it all down. UFC 323 puts a bow on the pay-per-view era in the United States, as they will move over to Paramount and CBS and all of that next year. Not a whole lot going on with that organization, right? Weird times in the television market in North America, but they close with a bang, and a very, very exciting fight wrapping up the pay-per-view calendar, as Petr Yan is the bantamweight champion again, beating Merab Dvalishvili. Unanimous decision, 249-46 scorecards and a 48-47. 48-47 matched up with mine. That's where I went on the scorecard. That's what I had for Yan. Excellent fight. I get Petr Yan, a former champion. That might be the best he has looked. Considering the opposition and everything like that, the stakes, all of that, that probably the most impressive performance of Petr Yan's career. And no one was beating that guy on Saturday. Like, this was a fight more of Petr Yan won than Merab lost. Like, this was more what Yan did right than Merab did wrong. And the big thing was the takedown defense for Yan. That won him this fight. It kept the fight where it needed to be. It kept him up early, and I think the most important part was that it made Merab work. And that dude has a gas tank for days. But you could see, as the fight went on, he's wearing out. Merab is wearing down. He's not getting there. He's not getting to what he needs. He is not having the same kind of controlling performance that he normally has. And that is because he's having to work so hard on these takedowns. I would put up the takedown stats. I think the way they measure takedowns are ridiculous. Where he had like five takedown attempts between shooting in and getting to the fence. I can get a couple when you're trying to transition from move to move, but either way, he defended all of them but a couple. He was excellent in that. And because of that, again, it makes Merab work and it keeps the fight where Jan wants it to be. And that is in the stand-up where he was excellent. The body work getting a lot of the attention, especially like from the third round on. The body kick that sounded like he hit him with a baseball bat was incredible. Couple good hooks to the body as well. But I thought it was the jab that kind of set the tone for the fight. It was the body work that I think kind of sealed the deal, but it was the jab that got Merab on the back foot for a lot of this. And I thought it was great. Oh, Sutern in the chat saying UFC was the worst ever. Just admit it. I disagree. Like I thought it was a really entertaining fight. I thought it was a really, really entertaining fight on Saturday. I thought again, the jab from Jan keeping Merab on his back foot, because Merab, he is all gas, no brakes, right? He is forward, forward, forward. But that jab, and this is what you really want to drive home to a lot of fighters. It's a lot of jabs in MMA, boxing too, but it's kind of just filling space. Like I am jabbing because I have been told that jabbing is good, and so I need to jab. Jan's jab was snapping. That thing was a weapon on Saturday. I am normally someone who calls for, when you see as many jabs as Jan had, just follow it up with the right. Follow it like just a quick or a little uppercut, or double up like a little bop and then a hook coming around it, or kick, whatever. A lot of tools you can use in MMA, right? That jab was so snapping and so effective, I barely was calling for that, which is, again, weird for me. I thought, it got Merab going the wrong direction, and it was allowed him to kind of stabilize things and really get his flow, get going in that fight. And once he started to establish that, so much comes off of it. Merab was doing really good in the stand-up, in the stand-up for a while, and able to kind of get his combinations in and land pretty crisp. And his stand-up has improved, no doubt. But once Merab got that jab, now he's figured the distance out. Now he knows I can just do this and I'm out of the way, and that puts me in spot for a takedown, or puts me in a good spot to counter and come back with the right. Once he figured out that jab and the range that he needed, everything else fell into place, including the body work that I do think kind of ends up stealing the show for him on Saturday. But just, I'm going to move on to Merab here in a second. Could not be more impressed with what Petr Yan showed, from the stand-up to the control of the octagon and the takedown defense. All of that put together means a very strong win for Petr Yan and a very deserving champion. Sutern, they have to do better though if they have another weekend of that. He had a good fight. Yeah, like Jan had a great fight. The weird one is like the arm break for Pantoja, and I will agree on the promotion of this fight. It did seem a little lacking. The UFC in a weird spot where you are going to a new television provider after this. And so I think a lot of their brain power is going into that. And I've been critical too. Like I think Dana White has kind of lost his fastball with a lot of the promotion stuff with the UFC, because he's so focused on slap fighting, because he's so focused on Zuffa boxing, because he is so focused on the budding friendship with Donald Trump and the meta stuff that he is doing, like all those other things. This guy who his only focus for so long was 3 letters, UFC, he has a little wandering eye syndrome now, right? And so they have done a really bad job of building up a lot of these. And I thought, considering what you had on the line here on Saturday, I thought they could have done a better job, Sutern, to your point, of building this up, where you have in the one fight, Josh Van, this incredible story. The guy fought twice in 21 days to earn an opportunity at the championship, this new budding star, and working his way into that championship conversation against a guy who has been so clearly number one in that division for a really long time. And so can this incredible story build up to a championship fight? Now, the championship fight did not live up to expectations because the dude's elbow went sideways, but still, you had that. And then in the main event, you have a rematch. Merab Dvalishvili, a win here. He is fighter of the year. He sets the record for most title defenses in the UFC's bantamweight history, going up against a guy who was a dominant and convincing champion before, but lost his belt to Merab, was claiming hand injury, and has come back and won 3 fights in a row to get into that. So you have two guys who are in the conversation for the best fighters in that division's history anyway, and they are coming together in this one spot and building it up. So yes, there was absolutely a promotional issue there. The UFC's had trouble with that for a little bit, and I would suggest, with the obvious exception of Conor McGregor at 145, they have always been just a little bit doo-doo at promoting the smaller weight classes, the old WEC weight classes. They've never been great at promoting those, aside from Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo. So I do think that there is a lot more that could be done to hype up those fights. 100%. Yeah, I would agree there. Totally. Yusef Goyer 7 saying, hello, bro. Nice live. Thank you. I appreciate that. All these coming over on the Kick channel. Suterin, dear God, I forgot slap boxing was a thing. Yeah, that's, I accept a lot from combat sports and all of that. Slap fighting, I'm out. That's my cutoff. That's where I'm at. Slap boxing is everything wrong with boxing and why MMA became a thing. Weird. Dana White supports it 100%. Hate that. When they learned at choking, someone out was safer than concussions, MMA became a thing. That was always the thing. When they were trying to get the UFC legalized in all these different places. I remember I was in Toronto, somewhere in my closet, deep in the recesses of my closet, or in a Goodwill somewhere. I forget. I may have donated by now. But there was a legalized MMA shirt that I had because when I lived in Ontario, you couldn't put on MMA fights. It was illegal. Human cockfighting is what it was. And a lot of the discussions around it from the pro MMA side were, well, look at boxing that has this pretty brutal track record, and it's constant blows to the brain. MMA, obviously there's a lot of that, but there is the grappling, there's kicks to the leg and the body and all of these things as well. Like there's, not that it is a safe form, it's still a cage fight, but it is at least a little bit safer than boxing because there isn't the standing 8 count or a 10 count. When a referee sees a guy is done, over, Dunsky, and it's not, okay, well, you can get up at 8, so now you get to take more brain damage, and then you're done. Referees can just call it. Leads to a couple of early stoppages, but still safer than the boxing. And you're right, Suterin. Now, to go with slap fighting, it completely goes against everything that they were talking about with boxing. So I don't agree with slap fighting even a little bit. Yusuf Goyer saying, where are you from? I am in Calgary, Alberta, sir. Or ma'am, I guess I shouldn't assume. But let's move now to the co-main event. A real unfortunate, or sorry, let's move now to the other part of the main event, and that is Merab Dvalishvili. I wonder if the grind of being the champion caught up to Merab. He's normally a lock to win the championship rounds. Daniel Cormier was saying, like, when Jan was kind of downloading the information in the first and working that jab, but eating a couple of shots from Merab's improved stand-up, Daniel Cormier was saying, yeah, okay, that's great, but you kind of need to win these first 3 because you know Merab's getting the last 2. That was kind of the assumption. And for Merab, he lost the 4th round, the 5th round. He lost the championship rounds on all 3 judges' scorecards, on mine as well, on basically everybody's. Most media members had it 50-45, so obviously he lost the final 2 rounds on those scorecards. He was wearing down. He was obviously slowing down as that fight went on. And this is, again, it's not a knock. A, I would have. B, almost anyone would have. And I will say, I don't know if there is a 135-pounder on the planet who was beating Petr Yan yesterday. There may not have been a 135-pounder ever who was beating Petr Yan yesterday. He was so good. On Saturday. He was so good and so dominant in what he was doing that even if Merab was peak Merab for 25 minutes, I don't know if he's getting that job done. But it did seem a little unusual to have Merab slow down in that way. And you just wonder if 4 title fights in 1 year, I'm pretty sure, like, all of them going a significant length anyway. You wonder if that starts to catch up. And again, it's some of those things, and it has worked for him, and it's what makes Merab. And I'm not saying he needs to come out and now be GSP point fighting in the back part of his career or anything like that. But to hear that he did 5 hard rounds of sparring during the day and then wore out as the fight went on, that stuff worked before. You wonder if you need to dial that back now just a little bit. You probably won't, because it's what made him him, but you do wonder if that starts to kind of dial back now as the career kind of goes on for Merab. I was going to say wind down. He's going to get another opportunity at the title, and he should, but you just wonder if the schedule that put him in the running and a top contender for Fighter of the Year, if that started to wear on him in this fight. It's also it's a win for technique. There is a reason why, like, again, we have seen for years and years, wild fighters just get the job done. And I have said that is a blind spot for me because when I see a guy who is just wildly swinging things everywhere, my first thought is, okay, a technical whatever can get that. You know, like Clay Guida, when he was going nuts and the hair was going everywhere and he's just and diving in for a takedown. It's like, okay, but someone with good takedown offense or good takedown technique is going to be able to stop that and just beat the shit out of this guy. And eventually there was a ceiling that he reached. Same with guys like Keith Jardine where, oh, wow, it's so kooky and wow, the punches can come from anywhere. It's like, okay, but there's a reason why for 200 years coming from here has been the best. Coming from that pocket straight down the middle, that's why it has always been that way. And guys will make it work and everything like that. And it's not that Merab's technique was awful, but you could see he has obviously improved. And like the jab, he's coming across with the right. It's all being very effective. But when it gets a little firefighty, Petr Yan stays in that pocket, stays covered up pretty well, and still straight down the middle, jab right. Dvalishvili, he gets into like he's playing those big stand-up drums where it's just swinging his hands across. That wears you out. That's another part of it too. That is why proper technique is taught. It is because A, it works, right? It is the most effective punches when someone is guarding with the two hands up like this. The most effective punch is a straight punch right in the middle of that. That has always been the way. Other guys have made it work. Other guys have not made technique work, right? Like you do have to have skill and everything that goes around with it. But the other part of it, when I am throwing wild haymakers all over the place, or I am doing this and straight up the middle, I am exuding much less energy when I am doing this. And when you have a 5-round title fight and guys are wearing out at the end, I think it was noteworthy that the guy who was flailing had a little less energy than the guy who was calm, who was stoic, and who was technically sound. So it's a win for proper technique in fighting as well. Really good chat going on in the comments. We have Yusuf from Egypt talking in here. And, we have betters who were pissed, I guess. Sutern, American now and living in Russia, saying, great live. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Wild fighter is a bad term for it. A fighter fighting like he is in a corner is better. Okay, there's a little bit of that. Like there is, yes, just wild is a bit, but there are some wild fighters. But yes, like a guy who, he just kind of lets it fly a little bit and lets it be damned over a guy who is strong, solid, whatever. Yes, totally 100%. Now again, like Sean O'Malley has pretty good striking technique. Merab kicked the shit out of him. There are ways that both work at different times. But when you have elite level technique against elite level crazy man, elite level technique wins out most of the time. And when you have a guy who is starting to wear down, you start to see that more and more. And the differences start to play out more and more as it goes on. So I thought, yeah, just a win for proper technique there in that one. In the co-main event, it's really unfortunate with Pantoja losing his championship after throwing a kick. Josh Van defends it, kind of topples him over a little bit, and as Pantoja is going down to kind of post, his elbow goes and it's sideways and it's dislocated and it's done. And so obviously, the first thought is it sucks. Like, that sucks to have happen. Pantoja, dominant champion. I would say for most of his run, no one was better than the next closest contender than Pantoja was to whoever was coming up next. And that is factoring in some very good fighters, but I think that gap between champion and challenger was never more vast than it was at flyweight with Pantoja and what he was doing in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So to have that title reign come to an end in that way really, really does suck. And it's not great for Van either, right? Like this is this up-and-coming prospect who is now wanting to test himself against the best in the world. He gets the win, he gets the belt, he gets to all the great things that come with that, and he should celebrate it, and we'll get into why in a second. But he doesn't learn anything about himself in this. He doesn't learn anything about the techniques that he has, the proper approaches to martial arts or anything like that. He doesn't learn any of that. He just learns that that guy's elbow went the other way, and now I win. That's what he learned. He learns what it feels like to have your name be called by Bruce Buffer with "and new" playing behind it or ahead of it. That's what he gets to learn. That being said, it's still the right decision. And the people who are calling for other ones, I vehemently disagree with. The no contest one, I saw that come up a little bit. I don't love that at all. And I can see because it's not a traditional technique that was used, and it's not a traditional way to lose. But your job in there is to hurt your opponent. And fluky as it was, Van used the technique, and his opponent got hurt and couldn't continue. That's what this is. That's what ultimately what we are doing in here. Barbaric as it may sound, it is the guys who are in there. I shouldn't say we. I've never fought. I will never fight in a cage. But as the general MMA, what is trying to be accomplished is one guy is trying to hurt another guy. One woman is trying to hurt another woman in the cage. That is what you are trying to do. And so is it weird that it came on a weird trip thing where the guy was just turning and falling and he dislocated his arm? Absolutely. It's weird. But Van still used a technique that led to his opponent getting hurt in a way where he couldn't continue. That is, by every definition of combat sports ever, exactly what you're supposed to do to win. Weird? 100% it's weird. No contest? 100% it's not. That is a win for Josh Van through and through. I also hated the Dominic Cruz tweet, where he was saying that Pantoja should have had the choice to continue with the dislocated elbow. I couldn't disagree more with him. Like, there are times, John Jones, his toe was sideways after the first round of the Chael Sonnen fight. He just was able to get Chael Sonnen out of there. There have been times where guys have been able to fight through not as obvious injuries and be able to get the job done or lose, depending on who it is. But when a fighter's elbow dislocates in the cage, I would suggest that would lead to that fighter not being able to intelligently defend himself. Like, we talk about being able to have your arm up to defend. If the one guy's arm is just kind of flopping around because his elbow isn't on right, that is not intelligently defending. It's like, oh, well, I can't even feel this anymore, so I'm just going to just flop this at you and slap you in the face a bunch of times, and that's what it's going to be. No, like, I get warrior spirit, go out on your shield, all of those things. But the reason we have a referee in there is so that when someone gets hurt, we save you from yourselves. Because yes, we know, as fighters, I would die in the cage. We're aware. You guys are nuts. Like, full respect, 100%. But fighters, generally, a little crazy. And a lot of them will, like, I would rather die than tap out, all of those sorts of things. Okay, that's why we have referees and commissions and doctors and stuff like that. That's why we film these things. We can't just have guys going out there, I don't care, I didn't hear no bell. It's the safety thing that we're talking about. So, he was only knocked out for a second and then got punched back into consciousness. So he should be able to keep fighting. No! He's injured. He can't defend himself when his arm is going the wrong direction. I just thought, Dominic Cruz, I have a ton of respect for. I think he's a great commentator as well. But I am finding more and more that there are some beliefs he has about fighting that I just don't jive with. All of that. But yeah, a little strange. A couple of the takes coming out of that fight. So yeah, very, very, very weird to have all of those going on at from a 23-second fight. Yeah. Should MMA UFC have another match ready to go off if something like this happens, like Bill said? I can kind of, like, I see where, like, having another thing just to be able to throw in is the case, but, like, there were, 11, 12 fights on that card anyway? Like, you've had a lot of fights going on as the night was progressing anyway. So, like, that was one of 12. There were some crazy fights, right? Like, you already had Edson Barbosa against Jalen Turner just going crazy in there anyway. So you had your bang for your buck. And then you got a fantastic fight in the main event as well with Dvalishvili and Petr Yan. So I hear what you are saying. And it is funny because there were times where you would get like a post-lim where after the final fight is done, all right, we didn't have time to get to this guy, so we know we just crowned a new champion, but now the number 18th ranked heavyweight is going to take on a new guy from Cambodia, and if we could just pretend that we're all really excited about that, that would be great. Or sometimes they would show on the pay-per-view one fight from the prelims after the pay-per-view was done. But in this era where everyone sees every fight and there's 12 of them, sometimes weird shit happens. That's just kind of the case, in my opinion. I can see where you'd want a standby fight ready because it was kind of a big money fight. But any standby, like any fighter who would agree to a standby fight and make weight for a standby fight and all of that, it's not going to be of the level that would match a championship fight anyway. So I do kind of see where you were coming from in this, Sutern. And maybe on the pay-per-view, now I didn't watch live here, but I do wonder if there is, like on the pay-per-view, it's like, okay, this wasn't great, but earlier tonight on the prelims, we had this banger of a fight. So let's just run that back and let's all feel good about violence again before we get to the main event. Okay? Okay. I wouldn't mind them doing that a little bit more like they used to do with the pay-per-views, but before all the fights were on Fight Pass and everything like that. So a weird one for Josh Van. The whole night kind of throws off the Fighter of the Year discussion, and I haven't gone through everyone's resume just yet. You can, honestly, even with a loss at the end, you can almost make your case still for Merab. I think Van is in the conversation. If this would have been a convincing win over Pantoja, he's in the conversation. But it probably comes down to Makhachev or Topuria again. And we will see what comes out of that. Just quickly, I wasn't on live to talk about the UFC Cutter fights that went down. So just quickly, I think any title conversation at lightweight has to include Arman Tsarukyan. Just a dominant performance again, and really showcasing what he can do and showing that he is the best to challenge for the 155-pound championship. I think he has to get the next shot at Topuria, and putting an interim belt on Gaethje against Paddy Pimblett is just dumb. I hate A, that that's headlining, and B, that they put an interim belt on that when you know who the next contender should be. So this whole Dana versus Arman thing, I'm over it. Ian Machado Gary, I've never been the biggest fan. I've felt like he's been trying to be Wish.com, Temu, Conor McGregor for a really long time. And some of the post-fight stuff, he was definitely trying to do that. But this was an excellent performance from him a couple of weeks ago at UFC Cutter. And I think he is deserving of at least being in the conversation to be in the conversation for a championship opportunity at welterweight. I think there are a couple of deserving fighters ahead of him, but he has had a good year in terms of like kind of rising through the ranks of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So just wanted to get a couple extra thoughts in there on the UFC stuff that I haven't been able to over the last couple of weeks. Hey, this stream's gone a little long, hasn't it? We're already at a minute, or not a minute, we're at an hour 45 of live on a couple of the platforms, and I've been talking for an hour 35 of it. And a lot of that is thanks to Swift Energy. Head over to swiftenergy.gg, use the code PKPrimetime, get 25% off, some great fuel, really good flavors as well, and helps you with the focus to get through podcast, gaming session, epic sports watching nights, whatever you want, whatever you need, just that little bit extra for. Swift Energy can help you out. And while you're there, use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. The UFC's final pay-per-view is in the books, and it was a interesting night, it was a controversial night, and it was a night that really shakes up the pound-for-pound rankings. So, let's see where everyone stacks up as we head into 2026. So, some big names with big losses and weird losses at UFC 323. So let's go through the pound-for-pound rankings now and see where everybody stacks up, because we have an obvious change in the top three, and we'll get to that in a second. But a reminder, if you could hit that subscribe button and, or follow, or wherever you're watching, hit that button, and we can have some more great conversations going around the Ultimate Fighting Championship. There's the button that I was calling for. All right. Two fighters dropped out of the pound-for-pound rankings. They are Magomed Ankalaev and Max Holloway. Ankalaev was hanging on in the back part of the top 10 because he beat Pereira, who is in the top 10, and so that should get you a spot. But when you have a weekend like we just had, it's a pretty unique one because you have a couple of fighters who are obviously deserving of staying in the top 10 lose, and you have a couple of fighters who are now champions that you kind of have to put in because they're champions at their weight classes. So, it's weird because normally when you have, what does the UFC have? Like 6, 7 division, 8? Either way, when you have all of those divisions but a top 10, there are a couple of, to use the college football term, a couple of at-large bids that you can get. But we essentially have to treat it like there are two champions coming out of this because Merab's not falling all the way out of the top 10. He was in the top 3. And Pantoja, I can't really drop him out of the top 10 because his arm broke. So he has to stay in. But the guys who beat them also gonna have to stay in. So it sets up a weird situation there. So because of that, Ankalaev coming off of a loss has to fall out, and Holloway, legend, but also has to come out of the pound for pound rankings. In at number 10, it is Alexandra Pantoja. I think you have to drop him out. I get it's a weird situation, and I do not believe the guys ahead of him are better than him. But with pound for pound, I think you can't just go, well, he would have beat him if this, or the judges screwed him on that. I think pound for pound, you have to take the results as they are, and so you do have to drop Pantoja down, but I can't take him out because of just how good he is. So at 9, making his debut in the pound for pound rankings is Joshua Van. An incredible year. He wins a championship on a fluke, but still wins a championship and still put himself in a position to capitalize on a fluke injury. Pantoja's arm got hurt, and Brandon Moreno did not become champion. Why? Because he hadn't earned the opportunity to take advantage of that. Joshua Van did. He was in the ring when that happened, so he gets the belt and he gets the spot in the top 10. At number 8, it is Petr Yan. He is back in the top 10 after getting the belt back from Merab. Just a brilliant, brilliant performance. And one where if you made everyone in this list the same size, if that Petr Yan showed up, I think he's beaten all of them. That's how impressed I was with Yan on Saturday night. But he comes in at number 8 right now. At 7, it's Alex Volkanovski, one of the greats, getting his championship back earlier in the year. Don't love the rematch that is set up with him and Diego Lopez. Should be another win for him, but still sticking around at 7. At 6, Merab Dvalishvili drops out of the top 3. You have to drop him down, but again, he has to stay in the top 10 because of an incredible run that he was on this year. At 5, it is Alex Pereira getting his championship back. Could be setting up, like Suterin is saying in the kick chat, could be setting up for a difficult match, a fun match, an intriguing match with John Jones, or maybe we get something with Tom Aspinall or something. But Pereira setting himself up for a really big opportunity coming up in 2026. At 4, Tom Aspinall. Once his eyeball starts working again, one of the best heavyweights, or the best heavyweight in the world right now, and just an incredible run of knockouts. Yeah, has to stay at number 4. Into the top 3, Merab is out, so Khamzat Chimaev stays or moves in. Again, someone who I think is a dominant grappler and can put a lot of the aspects of mixed martial arts together in a dominant way. Very deserving of this spot in the top 3. And the top 2 remain unchanged. At 2, it is Ilia Topuria, who spent a good chunk of the year at number 1 because he had the 2 belts, but he gets matched by Islam Makhachev, who is at number 1 in the pound for pound rankings for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. That's how I stack them up for the UFC. Again, at 10, Pantoja, 9, Van, 8, Petr Yan, 7, Volkanovski, 6, Dvalishvili, 5, Alex Pereira, 4 is Tom Aspinall, 3, Khamzat Chimaev, 2, Ilia Topuria, and at number 1, Islam Makhachev, with Magomed Ankalaev and Max Holloway popping out of the top 10. Let me know if you have any disagreements at all in the chat or in the comments. Although Suterin with the nice the nice compliment saying you're doing the radio man very well. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Just so you know, you talk so fast it makes it near impossible for anyone to chat with you. Yes, I understand. Like I'm kind of flying through it a little bit, and I am doing this a little bit more in the radio style that I am familiar with. I should try to slow it down a little bit as well to kind of get that going. I get into my roles when I'm talking because of the radio background and doing this like a podcast. So I will try to kind of slow it up a little bit and we can have better chats in there, Suterin. I apologize for that, absolutely. So yeah, I think a lot of fun coming from the world of the UFC. And we're setting up for a pretty good 2026, what should be a weird year with the UFC off of pay-per-view now and maybe onto the White House lawn. We'll see about all of that as the year rolls on. But I do want to, again, I wasn't able to talk about this when it happened, but 2 very impressive performances in the sport of boxing happening last month. And I really do think we need to talk about how good 2 of the best fighters in the world looked in Saudi Arabia with David Benavidez and Devin Haney. I think that they were just fantastic. So we'll get to that in just a second. But Suterin, talking about it here, would like to hear your 12-6 thoughts. Also asked my favorite Radiohead song. I'm not a big Radiohead guy, so I don't... Creep, I guess. Would like to hear your 12 to 6 thoughts. Should it have been made illegal? Is John Jones's record perfect, or does he have losses? Well, the 12 to 6 debate was always weird because it was like, as Joe Rogan explains it, the people in the commission saw the karate demonstration where a guy went hi-ya and broke bricks and things, right? And so you can see where they're coming from, where, well, if a guy can do that to someone, to a brick, what's he going to do to a brain? So that you can see where they are coming from. But to me, like, you can get a pretty good drive going like this. You also can like this, though, right? When you're coming just from 2 o'clock, like a nice little 2 to 7, you are arguably you can get more drive going. So I have always thought that specifically was weird. If you're going to take that away, then take elbows away on the ground entirely. And why are we allowed to hammer fist if you're not supposed to 12 to 6, right? Like it's coming from 12 to 6. You are doing this. So why was hammer fist allowed and elbows not? And I get elbows are harder and all of that. Like I literally understand the argument, but what are we like? Why is that the line we are drawing? So yes, it's a dumb rule, and I have always hated it, and I do think they're getting away from it. This is the problem. The unified rules of MMA aren't unified at all. We need to have better standards for a lot of those things. So like that does need to be kind of tightened up a little bit. The one thing I will say though is that it was a rule. It's a dumb rule. I hate the rule. It was a rule. And so John Jones has to know that rule and follow that rule. Like, we can't just go back to the early days of the UFC when it was all things go and you could soccer kick guys and stuff like that and say, oh, see, that soccer kick rule, it was allowed then, but we don't allow it now, so that's a loss for this guy. Well, we can't go back and change these things. It was a dumb rule, but it was still a rule. And part of your job in there is to follow the rules. We hear the fighters told all the time, give your instructions in the back. You need to know what the rules of engagement are. And John Jones didn't. So is it hilarious that the most dominant fighter of all time, his only loss is because he was kicking someone's ass too hard? Yeah, it's funny. But it should stay on the resume because it was a rule, as much as I disagree with that rule at that particular time. I think a knee is worse than an elbow. That's fair. 12. I don't even know how you would do a 12 to 6 knee. I guess you're going like, are you talking, Suterin, about like a kind of a 6 to 12 knee? I guess like I don't know how you would do a 12 to 6 knee to someone on the ground, but like what we do see when you have someone in like the tie plum and you bring them and you can bring the knee up like straight up and down, or okay, yes, a pro wrestling style drop knee you shouldn't be able to do. I understand. Yeah, that's fair. But this would be like a 6 to 12 knee. I think those are fine. But again, like we're splitting hairs between like what is an acceptable level of brain damage to cause on one thing. We do have to understand this is a violent sport. We've kind of all the people in there accept it, right? Dominic Cruz wanted a guy to fight with one arm. They kind of accept that part of it going in. You try to make it as safe as possible, but there is at some point it's a cage fight, right? Like people are going to get hit, people are going to get hurt, and sometimes in like irreversible ways, and that is unfortunate. And so you do try to limit that as much as possible. So yeah, like I don't think you should be allowed to pile drive a guy. I don't think you should do a running knee drop on someone. The soccer kick thing, I understand it. I have always the part of it I don't like is when a wrestler, and we don't see it as much now, but when a wrestler would shoot, they don't get it because of a good sprawl, and then they just turtle. And it's like, well, I can't do anything. Like I should be able to. Again, this is barbaric. I should be able to kick that guy in the head, right? Like he tried something, I was able to block it. I should at least get one free punt, right? But you can also understand like that, you can generate a lot of power there. And we saw Vanderlei Silva ruined guys in Pride being able to do that. So that one, again, but we're talking about reasonable brain damage. And it's a weird line to kind of draw in the sand. But I do think that there is, the soccer kick one I get. That one I get it. When you see soccer kicks to the body and stuff like that, oh boy, is that violent. And really effective. So, but I think kind of where we're at right now is fine. The playing the game where you can have like two hands and no, do I have one? Do I have one or two? One or two. That one shouldn't be allowed. Like I hate that. Like the hands, I don't think the hands should be a point of contact. I think like it's because you have to have some kind of black and white rule for it. But I think honestly, if they just wrote the rule, you can't, no kicks to the head of a downed opponent And the definition of a downed opponent is you'll know. You know. I would be okay with that, but I understand that there's some nuance there that would be a little bit tricky to do in the thing. Test your MMA. Let me test your MMA knowledge. Do you know the white guy who would lay down and break knees? Lay down and break knees? No. And white guy, like the first, like, breaking knees. I don't know that one. I feel like there's a joke coming with this, but I don't know that. Like the ones like the intentional injury, like Husamar Palhares would like intentionally like he would do the knee bar, right, or the knee lock or whatever it was at the time. I remember that, and he would hold on to them longer and too long and potentially like ruin some dudes. So is that who we're talking about, Palhares? Because that was the one, like, he got banned for the UFC. Yes, okay, excellent. Still got it. He got kicked out of the UFC because, like, he very good grappler, very it's weird to say this, but like a couple of guys that you would describe this way, a powerful grappler, right? Like the things that he would put on, it just, like, you could tell obviously they would hurt, and there was a lot of strength in the technique, and he would like just really wrench on guys, and then when they tap, he would keep holding it and keep wrenching it. And the issue, like, you're being a dick. Like, the guy's already accepted he's lost. But also, the tricky thing with, like, knee bars and heel hooks and stuff like that is the knee is really tricky. Like, it is, it's fine until it's not. And, like, so a knee bar doesn't hurt. And once it starts hurting, you've got a small window before things go snap, crackle, pop in there. And he was pushing beyond that reasonable window. So that was, like, he genuinely was one of the more dangerous fighters in the UFC. So yeah, I'm happy I passed that test, Suterin. I believe that. He could have been a champion. Yeah, if he just would have followed the rules, like you said, he could have been... Yeah, like that really dangerous grappler at a really, really good time for him. Like that there was opportunities. He was winning these fights, but it just wasn't really happening for him because he was being, like we said, he was being a dick. So happy I could pass that MMA test, and a fun little trek down UFC's past here with you guys today. But like I said before, I do want to talk a little bit of the boxing. Two of the best boxers in the world put on some pretty good performances out in Saudi Arabia, and I think they deserve the spotlight. So let's talk David Benavidez and Devin Haney. Riyadh season brought us another stacked card in November, and with that came some pretty interesting performances, but a couple that I want to spotlight here today. Again, apologies, this is a little late for a reaction video, but I still want to get something up, but I was on the radio in Calgary and couldn't talk about it. So, David Benavidez, just a dominant performance of Anthony Yarde, and I think what we see here, because Yarde's a fine fighter, this is a couple of times where he has kind of bumped into that ceiling a little bit now, where he has been, like, pretty clearly a good fighter, not a great fighter. And that becomes a bit of an issue when you are fighting great fighters. And Devin Haney, we'll talk about him in a second. David Benavidez showed he is a great fighter and just showed he is on that level and has been showing for a while that he deserves to be in the Canelo, Bivol, Beterbiev, that conversation. And it sounds like he's getting one of those fights next. Good. He should, because he is absolutely deserving of being in those spots and getting in those conversations. Just another dominant performance. It is time now to test this guy against the highest level that his weight classes have to offer. The other performance that was getting a lot of talk, and I just didn't get it, was Devin Haney. I thought this was one of his best performances ever. Was it balls to the wall the whole time? No. But I think we are having now, and in some ways, rightfully so, with him. Like, it is an earned response, but I feel like for a fighter who gets the reputation of playing it safe, you almost have to come out like it is Gotti Ward, and we're just throwing till one of us drops, baby, and who knows who it's going to be, when it's going to be, why it's going to be. We're just going. It feels like if you have a measured approach, the way Haney has had, and the only way to get rid of that reputation is to come out like it is Rock'em Sock'em Robots, or it's WWE and you have a chair, and change people's minds of it. So yeah, was this, like, no one's top 10 lists of most exciting fights in the history of the sport changed after Saturday. But for Haney to get the criticism again of being too safe, too this, too that, needed to push the pedal, I think was entirely unfair. I thought he was pushing when he needed to. Like, could there have been a little bit more? Sure, yeah. But he was in control of this fight and still looking for big shots and still coming forward, still landing effectively. So I thought the post-fight commentary calling out Haney was entirely unfair. And I know, like, sometimes, especially if it's in a big fight, and Haney coming off of the Garcia, whatever that was, a couple of fights ago, and a bit of a performance in the next one, he needed a win. He needed a win. He needed a good performance. I will defend guys like that when they need to win because it's their life, right? Like, if he loses, then it's done for him, right? We're talking about this guy fighting on YouTube streams. All due respect to a YouTube stream. But instead now, he gets a win and he gets to keep fighting in these big fights on pay-per-view, on DAZN, on this, that, and the other thing. So I will be defensive of guys in those spots because you still need to win. This is still a sport. But I feel like this was not that type of a showing at all. I thought Haney was pushing forward, was dictating where this fight was taking place, how it was taking place, and still landing some really substantial shots along the way. So, like, I was blown away with Devin Haney's performance. And I was off of social media because we were a little bit behind on the pay-per-view when we were watching it. And I'm really behind talking about it now, but I thought there was just this control, but also aggression that we hadn't seen from him before. I thought it was his best performance. And I think that, like, for me, it answered what I needed to see answered. And he can move right back up into any title-y conversation-y that he wants to at this particular time. So I liked it a lot. And I was really surprised at some of the post-match commentary coming off of that. And so I'm excited to see. We got some good boxing coming up. We'll talk about it later on in the week. We got some good boxing coming up to start 2026. Sutern in the chat. Canelo, dude, he is 40. If not, he looked 40 in his last fight. Canelo Alvarez, his hands are so slow now. Don't list him in the top 10. We'll do pound for pound later in the week. I think you can make a pretty compelling case that he's not there anymore. I do agree that, and like, one of my favorite fighters of all time. He has obviously lost a step. He has timed that by picking fights that no one wanted to see. And then this Terrence Crawford one, he picked a fight that people wanted to see that it still kind of felt was easy for him. And then it wasn't. And you could clearly see where he was deficient at this point in his career. So yes, to list Canelo as a top 10 fighter at this point in his career would probably be whistling past the graveyard on his career a little bit. He's going to need to show a lot in the next little bit. Another one here from Sutern. The sad fact about boxing is the number one ESPN thread is something about Fury. Yeah. I mean, look, there's the Paul Joshua stuff that's happening. Is that this weekend or next weekend? One of them. I don't pay attention to that sort of a thing. I think a lot of the focus for boxing now should be December 27th. My number one pound for pound guy, no, in a way, goes to defend his title again. Just crazy power. If you just want a nice boxing cleanse, watch this guy's highlights on YouTube. He brings the heat. So yes, that should be where a lot of the focus is instead of the Furies, the Pauls, the Joshuas at this point in their careers. 100% agree with you on that, Sutern. So let me know what you guys think on the boxing conversation. If I'm completely out to lunch on Haney or Benavidez, let me know in the chat, or if we're watching after the fact, let me know in the comments. And while you're at it, let's keep this boxing conversation going. Sutern just said it. A lot of the boxing chatter is about things that don't deserve to be talked about. Here, Couch Potato Diary, your boys covered fights for a long time. So I want to talk about the fights that matter in ways that matter. And I want more like-minded fans to do that. So whether you're watching on the live stream or you're watching this after the fact, hit that share button and let's share it with some real fight fans and get a real good conversation going. Not that this hasn't been. I've loved chatting with Sutern. We haven't done this in a little bit. So I'm enjoying the conversation we're having today. I just wish you guys had more people to debate with when we're talking about these in the chat. And the best way to do that is hit that share button. Let's now go to the world of simulated combat, as the WWE is getting ready for a really big week in their company's history, really. It's John Cena's retirement, and we're going to look ahead to that in just a little bit. We're going to get ready for Monday Night Raw, but don't get to talk about SmackDown a lot. It's on Fridays, and so we kind of, venture away from that. Sutern WWE, okay, you're here on your own. Appreciate it, Sutern. Check my YouTube channel out. I got a bunch of, boxing I've kind of fallen off on a little bit, but got a lot of boxing, a lot of other non-WWE on there. You can get caught up on a lot of content from Couch Potato Diary. But I appreciate you coming in, talking about the face punching here with us today. But the WWE, don't get to talk about SmackDown a lot. It's on Fridays. By the time we're here on Monday, there's been a lot that's happened over the weekend. But I just thought there was a couple of things on SmackDown that really deserved our attention. So let's take a look at what was a pretty noteworthy edition of SmackDown from Friday. We are on the road to John Cena's last match, and SmackDown, we figured out who was going to be the challenger. We all kind of knew where that was going, but I think we set up some pretty interesting stuff along the way as well. Obviously, the big thing is Gunther. He is going to challenge John Cena for John Cena's last match. I thought the match with LA Knight was really good. I thought they made LA Knight come across like the underdog, but also very effective as well. And I thought they did a very good job of kind of protecting him and making him feel like he was deserving of that spot while still giving Gunther a dominant performance, and then sending the message to John Cena with a move that's kind of like the STFU. I thought a very strong showing altogether. The thing that impressed me the most on this show was Solo's promo against the Wyatt Six and saying, I'm going to make it so you know, so that the world knows you don't deserve the name Wyatt. And like that, I believe. I thought that was excellent from Solo. And kind of the thing I've been waiting for from this guy. Like he was the silent muscle of the bloodline. And then when he gets in charge, it was probably too much too soon for him. The promos weren't as good. The second he opened his mouth, he became much less intimidating, honestly. And then he tries to play the funny thing, which at least gave him some personality. But this is what I want to see more of. And I get, like, I call for this kind of thing a lot. I like my wrestling serious. I'm not a funny ain't money all the way guy, but if we want some characters to be taken seriously, they have to be serious. And Solo, like he had the look, he had the brawler type thing going on. It wasn't really working, but now getting back to this sort of a thing, I thought this was fantastic to reestablish the Solo character in the way that I would see it. So I thought it was great. I also really like how they are using this US Open Challenge thing. The lame thing with calling Ciampa a jackass and all of that. Like it's not the most in-depth storytelling, but they have now made me interested in Ciampa versus Carmelo, in Carmelo versus Dragunov Part 2, in Dragunov versus Ciampa, and then teeing things up with Tama Tonga, who was always right there when Dragunov is in the back, and then something with Fraxium and DIY. Like, they have used this open challenge in a way that has elevated quite a few performers and a few matches and a few stories now very, very effectively. So I think they have done a great job with this. And I think with Carmelo, there's a way, and I know I had a joke a couple of years ago before, like, it was out a few years ago now, actually. But they would have, when they have the two championships, but no real brand split, everything in my mind was always towards how can we unify these championships. And eventually we did with Randy Orton, John Cena, and then Daniel Bryan and all that. But so much of everything that Carmelo is in is tied towards bringing Trick in with him and all of that. And I think you can kind of start to see that play out now, where the numbers game hurts him with Tommaso Ciampa coming in and costing him the U.S. title against Ilya Dragunov. Well, now I need some backup as well. And the other thought I had was because Trick and Kalani Jordan seemed like they were starting some on-screen chemistry a little bit. Well, they have Candice LeRae, so I should have Kalani come in and kind of help me out as well. I think you can kind of start to see where some of those building blocks are. But again, that is where my tunnel vision is with it, so maybe I'm just seeing something that isn't there. I do also like continuing to build up the women's tag team division and the rivalries in it. I think using War Games, well, we all had our criticisms of War Games, using that in a way to spin off a number of different tag team rivalries, plus furthering AJ and Becky Lynch. I think when you look at AEW and Blood and Guts, which was obviously like a superior product to War Games, but the follow-up where that Mother's Milk submission that, obviously with the whipping too, that made Toni Storm have to submit on Mina Shirakawa's behalf, that has now been broken out of a couple of times. And now two teams that lost in War Games are wrestling for the championship. So I don't know if the follow-up has necessarily been there. But then you look at the follow from WWE, and we now have spun this off into Rhea and Io continuing on as a team, having an issue with the Kabuki Warriors. We'll talk about Rhea more in a second. Lash Legend and Nia also going for the tag team championships, the Kabuki Warriors in there as well. You have kind of spun this out into a multi-brand tag team title battle on a group of championships that can go from brand to brand. So I think they've done a really good job of kind of following it up on the women's side with that really, really well. I don't love adding Rhea to the Damian Priest thing. It helps the story. It helps Priest. It helps the intrigue of it because the story's been dead. It adds arguably the biggest star in the company to a story. That helps. It brings her to SmackDown for a show. That's going to help her rating. And like I said, it makes it interesting. So there is that. I just hate that, again, the brand split thing is falling apart. And I know that people fall in apart. But like, there is a way to do the brand split well. And I know people criticized it at the beginning, but I thought the start of the brand split when they did it, after WCW goes down, and you have the draft, Raw is Raw, SmackDown is SmackDown. And if you wanted someone to kind of bounce back and forth, you had to make a trade. Or it was Eric Bischoff stole this contract from from SmackDown. Stephanie McMahon poached this star over to SmackDown and brought it that way. That there was storyline for it. And WWE has tried to do a storyline thing sometimes, but it has always been, oh, it's a wild card. This person can come in and do that, but ignore the other three others that are doing it or whatever. And now they're just not even trying with this. So I wish there was like a loan system or a something, but just some kind of a story to kind of keep the integrity of the brand split up a little bit. Because I do think having a brand split is valuable. Having multiple champions, valuable, all of those sorts of things. But you have to keep the rest of it solid for the good parts to mean anything. And this is just the latest in a long line of chipping away at the foundation of all of that. But overall, very, very good SmackDown, leading up to a big week in the WWE. For those of you who are looking for just the wrestling stuff, the opposite of Sutan, who left the chat after we were talking about, started talking about WWE. If you just want the wrestling, I have a wrestling podcast. It is called Living Room Lariat. It is available on Spotify. Again, just search Living Room Lariat. That honestly would be my preferred destination for you. For it is Spotify. There's just a few more bells and whistles over there, video-wise and all of that too. But you can also get it on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. But if sitting through 2 hours of sports talk wasn't necessarily your jam to get to the wrestling, we got the wrestling stuff for you over there. And some things that are unique to Living Room Lariat. For example, our look ahead to John Cena's last match. It's wild. This is his last week as a full-time performer in WWE. Now he's wrestling once. It's on Saturday. But still, this is it. This is what we've all been building toward, is this last moment, John Cena in the WWE as a performer. So let's look ahead and get ready for what should be an emotional weekend in the WWE. So, WWE pushes toward John Cena's last match. And honestly, the main part of every debate with this is, what do you do with John Cena? I think having him lose the IC title to Dominic Mysterio, it adds a little bit of the drama to this of will he win or won't he? I think if this was for the IC title, obviously he's not retiring with it. So you have a little bit of that. And then you have the discussion of, like, are they really going to make him lose his last two matches? How are we going to do this here? So I think you at least have the possibility of John Cena winning this match in everyone's minds a little bit. I think that'd be the wrong move. I think you have to win it with Gunther here. But you at least keep that possibility. I've also seen a lot of criticism of Gunther getting this chance. And, like, yes, I get wanting to have a young wrestler do this. But, and this is where you kind of always miss out on I think some other people miss out on it needs to be a young wrestler thing. And this is where I think some wrestling fans not being sports fans, comes in. Obviously, there is a lot of crossover between the two, but there are a lot of wrestling fans who are just wrestling fans, and that is fine. Like, you do you, homie. whatever. Like no criticism here at all. But it is not just as simple as, oh, well, this kid's 23. Javon Evans should beat John Cena in his last match. Why? Because the kid can not even rent a car. And because of that, you are going to give him this win, and it is going to elevate him, and it's going to carry him for the next 20 years of his career. Or you're going to give it to Gunther, who's already 40? How could you possibly? What is he going to get out of it? You need to have someone ready for that. It is not just as simple as they win, and thus they are now John Cena, and they are ready for this and everything like that. You look at like a few different times where they've tried something along those lines. Fandango beating Jericho at WrestleMania. In theory, it makes all the sense in the world. Younger performer comes in, beats Chris Jericho, made man. The problem is they didn't build the character up well. It was okay. Didn't build the character up well and didn't follow it after. You didn't have this character ready for this. And so instead of, well, he's young, so now he gets this big win and off he goes. Instead of that, it was he was young, he wasn't ready for it, the crowd wasn't ready for him to have it, and thus we have now wasted this big opportunity. And I'm not saying if you had Javon Evans win this tournament and beat John Cena and like that he wouldn't be ready for it, but you need to have someone who the audience believes in and who you know is going to be ready. This shouldn't be a first step for someone. This should be the last step for some people. And like I am one of the few who thinks the Brock Lesnar win over The Undertaker was an okay thing for them to do. Now, stick with me for a second on this. I can, like, the other one, like the other two that would have made sense would have been Randy Orton winning it at WrestleMania 21. Maybe a little bit too early in the whole scheme of things. But Randy was obviously going to be a star. He was obviously ready for it. And then CM Punk winning it. Now, obviously, a year later, he's gone, so that wouldn't have worked all that well. But at the time, that felt like if you want to really make this guy, this is the one that you give him for that. But for Brock Lesnar, like, at the time, it's kind of weird to say this now, but at the time, we were all a little kind of over it with Brock. They hadn't booked it very well in like that whole kind of like pre-Undertaker thing. He'd come in, wrestle John Cena, but he lost to John Cena. And we did all these things and it wasn't all that big and all that. Like it wasn't as big as Brock Lesnar would become. But what they did with Brock is like he goes in, he beats the Undertaker. He has ended this streak. Brock's still wrestling. So if you want, like I get there was a pause there for obvious reasons, and far be it for me to say nice things about Brock Lesnar, but Brock is still wrestling and was in the main event picture for the WWE for a long time after that, right? Like he was in the main event of WrestleMania 31. He was in the title picture for forever, right? Like that was WrestleMania 30. We're coming up on WrestleMania 42. It was 12 WrestleManias ago. And again, he's missed a couple for obvious reasons, but this was someone who stayed as a main event level wrestler for a decade after it, holding this dominant win over The Undertaker as one of the things that they did. So yes, would it have been better on Randy? Probably. Would it have been better on Punk? Absolutely. But because you had someone who maybe didn't necessarily fit the age demographic of what you were looking for, but he was ready for it and honestly needed a bit of a jump start, that was what you gave him. Gunther seems like a better dude, but in somewhat of a similar situation where he dominant title reign, but he's lost it. And the guy who he lost it to maybe wasn't ready for the opportunity, right? Like I had the thing, I thought Jey Uso was a good call for the Royal Rumble, but he has fallen off quite a bit. And so now like that loss, like he loses there, gets it back, loses to Punk. The Punk one was fine. But I mean, even then Punk gets cashed in on. And so Gunther becomes this afterthought a little bit. Gunther is a main eventer, but does he fit in the title picture right now? Probably not. Given the Braun breaker of it all, what are they doing with Seth at some point? Is he going over to SmackDown and wrestling Cody? Probably not. So Gunther doesn't really fit into the title picture right now, but he is going to be someone who's going to be a main eventer for this company for the next 5 years. Giving him this win reestablishes that greatly. And now you have a guy who you are planning on keeping dominant for a really long time, giving him this big win, this feather in his cap, and just establishing to a grander audience that this guy is for real. Because this is probably going to be a big audience. So yeah, it would be cool to get them familiar with Javon Evans with this win. But if you're a wrestling fan and you've brought up Gunther to non-wrestling fans, the first thing anyone asks is, oh my God, they didn't make him and you know where they're going, and we're going to cut it off there because you know the type of character that Vince McMahon would have made him 10 years ago. People don't know who this guy is for like the general public, right? And I'm not saying that he wins this and all of a sudden Gunther is going to be in Peacemaker, but this is a chance to show one of the dominant guys who you're going to build around for the next 3 to 5 years. Show this audience that he is that dominant guy. Get this across to him, and maybe you get a few more people sticking around next time to watch that asshole get beat by someone else. So I think Gunther is actually the right choice. I had said before, like, I think Penta would have worked there really well, but he's got hurt. I think Carmelo Hayes, if there would have been a way to build it, that would have been a pretty effective guy to do it with. And you could have built a faction out of it. I kind of laid that out on another video that we did. But for the way that everyone is sitting right now, and we can argue about how they haven't built up other guys. Like, this is why I thought Braun Breaker was the guy to do this, because this would have been the last step of him getting over to that level. Now, in this time, he has gotten over. Now he's challenging for the title on the first anniversary on Netflix, and he might just win it. So we may have just passed go and collected $200 on that one. But they don't have anyone else ready in this spot that can take that ball and get to that next step. For Carmelo, it would be jump-starting a build that they have dropped the ball on for a year and a half. That's fine, but it's not what you need in this spot. And I don't think that's the way to get the most out of it. I think for this one, you want to establish, like, this is the final note on a guy, and I think it's the final note in getting Gunther right back into that main dominant status. So I have no problem with Gunther getting it. I hope that one thing we see here is that there are some call-ups ready, and we get these opportunities. Like, Oba's ready. Ricky Saints is ready. And I wonder now if Ricky kind of gets, like, he gets spun off into a thing with Cody, and kind of helps Cody with Oba there. Tough to do that in a heel babyface dynamic that they're going to have on Saturday, but, like, that match is going to be a lot of fun to see. I'm also very excited to see Sol Ruca against Bayley. Sol, I think, has star potential written all over her right now. The look, the moves, the match, all of that. Probably could do some work, but the rest of it, like, she carries herself in a star way and has a star moveset, all these different things, right? The one thing I'm very interested in is, like, when you think, okay, what's the way that we can maximize Sol Ruca? It is probably someone like Lyra Valkyria or Io Sky, like a fast-paced, high-flying type of a match. I think this is a good test to see. Like, Bayley, it's not Great Khali in there, but Bayley's not going to be running around and doing planchas and doing this, that, and the other thing, or a lot of them. Anyway, Bayley is a bit more of the style of wrestler that Sol is going to have to work well with to get to that championship level on the main roster. So, yes, it would be cool to see her do a bunch of flippy-dippy shit and have a really, really fun match. But I'm interested to see when you don't have as many of those things, and you do have to work a regular wrestling match, for lack of a better term, can you still be entertaining? Do you still come across as a star? Because this is probably the style, rightly or wrongly, this is probably the style you're going to have to work when you get to that championship level on the main roster. So I think a really interesting test for Sol Ruca coming up on Saturday at Saturday night's main event. A lot more coverage of this to go throughout the week on Couch Potato Diary and on Living Room Lariat. We are streaming live right now on a few different platforms and have been going for a couple of hours. I'm going to be on Sportsnet 960 throughout the rest of the week. But again, I miss this. I miss you guys. I want to do these live more often. So going to be back live. I'm saying it right now, so I can't get out of it. Going to be back live on Wednesday at 4 p.m. for sure doing that. I was hoping to do a Tuesday one, but I remembered I have a thing. So we will see about Tuesday. But Wednesday for sure, 4 p.m. We're going to be back live here doing the thing on a couple of these platforms. Anyway, so keep it locked to my social media for all of that. This stream's been going long, so we're getting closer and closer to Monday Night Raw. Once again, time to preview Raw. Each week, I give you 3 things that I'm watching for on WWE Monday Night Raw. So let's get into it on the Go Home edition before John Cena's last match. John Cena's last match is obviously going to get a lot of the headlines, but here are the 3 things I'm looking for from WWE Raw tonight. Number 1 is obviously, how do they tee this thing up? Gunther is a good enough promo on his own. We saw it with the Goldberg build and everything like that. He is someone that can make this even more intriguing, aside from just it's John Cena's last match. And he can kind of build that momentum for himself and kind of carry this with John Cena obviously not set to come out there on Monday. So how does Gunther kind of build up a match on his own when it does kind of already feel sold, but it's also a big moment for him to establish who he is to maybe a bigger audience for this one. I'm interested to see where they go next with the Judgment Day stuff. Liv Morgan, obviously, with a tease with Stephanie Vaquer, and then seemed in good spirits with Raquel and Roxy when they were going after the tag gold at the end of that whole beatdown on Monday Night Raw, closing things out last week. Does that continue? Do we get a little bit more dissension? What about the guys' side of everything? So I think there's a few different notes that could be hit on Monday that I am looking forward to. And then I think we get another really fun tag team match out of AJ Styles and Dragon Lee against the War Raiders. If we do get a run in on this, which it sucks that, hey, this is a match I'm excited about. Can't wait to see who runs in on it. But I do hope that we at least either we're going to get a great match. I want to see a little bit more progression in some kind of a challenger on the Raw tag team side at this point. Maybe we lump in what I was talking about before with Rhea and, she's going to SmackDown now all of a sudden. Maybe there's a SmackDown thing, like they have loaned Rhea to SmackDown in exchange for one of the teams coming over to Raw and being able to establish themselves there, or just something. But I want to see this tag team division built up because we saw what the potential of it was last week. So those are the 3 things I want to watch on Raw. What about you? What are you keeping an eye on for Monday Night Raw this week? Let me know in the comments or in the chat or wherever you are consuming this. But while you're doing that, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe or follow wherever you are tuning in to this thing. One more thing to go on this program today. NXT, coming off of their show Deadline. There is obviously a bit of a build toward the future. And with that promotion, that does mean that there are some people who could be moving on. So, as we get ready for an NXT versus WWE show later this week, let's take a look at who is ready to be called up from the NXT roster to the WWE's main roster as we continue with some wrestling talk. All right, so NXT's deadline has now passed. They get ready to have some people show off on Saturday night's main event. But what does it mean for the promotion in general as the developmental brand is potentially ready to send some people up to the main roster? Here are, I guess, 3 acts that I think are ready to get called up. Number 1 is Obafemi. No water, no bread, just meat, like Booker T would say, or something along those lines. He says it better than I do anyway. This guy is ready. He has the aura. He is never going to be one of the Rock and Roll Express in the ring. I don't know why that was the name that came to my head, but like Bret Hart, he is not. But he is very good at being him. Right? Like the promos, I think he's gotten a lot better at. He knows how to wrestle the style that makes him look like a dominant, badass big dude. And he has just every part of that character down. And I think he's been ready for the main roster for a while. I was surprised when he came back to go up against Ricky Saints. There were people putting him into the War Games. So like this guy, it should be a Royal Rumble and onward for him. I think absolutely this guy is ready. I think Ricky Saints is too. Obviously, like this guy was a lack of a better term, main roster player on AEW anyway. He has the promo, the in-ring, all of it. He has the ties with Cody. Like he is, I think, ready for that. The one thing, and the reason why I don't have Ethan Page in here as well, is that this is still a television brand, as frustrated as I get sometimes with that, because the purpose of NXT is supposed to be get people ready for the main roster. It is not supposed to be get a television show out there, but that's what it's turned into over the last little while. Ethan Page is absolutely ready for the main roster. 1,000,000,000% ready for the main roster. But this is already a show that is significantly lacking men's main event talent. And if you took Oba, Ricky, and Ethan in one swoop, then the bottom falls out really quick. So I think for the brand, Ethan probably needs to stick around. And honestly, like you could with Oba or Ricky, Oba being the champion, probably means he's staying for a while. So you could swap out Ethan there because like he has a ready-made gimmick with Chelsea Green and all of that. Like him bumping for Jade Cargill would be spectacular. Like he has a lot ready-made already that he could be up to the main roster. So pick two of Ethan Page, Obafemi, and Ricky Saints, and they are ready for the call-up. And then the other one has to try to salvage the main event scene on the men's side on NXT. And then on the women's side, Fatal Influence, I think, is ready. I think like JC Jane improved so much over the last little while and really got to showcase that in her title run that I think she's obviously main roster ready. The problem, like, she is more ready than the other two in the group, but I would have, like, I think Fallon Henley could work on the main roster right now, and I think Lainey Reed gets there. She would probably be on main event a lot. And if she was just on her own, there's no way we'd be calling for her to be ready. But she's part of a faction that is, and I think she's close enough that she can just kind of get by. She is one that would benefit a lot from there still being house shows and her just touring around wrestling every night. I think she still kind of needs that. Not the world we're in right now, but I think she still has an opportunity to kind of grow into a role. I think that whole act is ready for the main roster in what is increasingly competitive tag team division on WWE television at this particular time. There are a couple who are close, so I guess honorable mentions. Izzy Dane and Tatum Paxley, I think they've both leveled up in the last couple of weeks. They're entering into a feud and having all their stuff at Deadline and leading up to it. But I think they both showed that there's a there now for both of them. And Dane, I think showed that she's at a level that I don't think people understood that she was at. Tatum Paxley, I think, got to a higher level than people thought she could, even with a brief title reign. Obviously, the people are behind her as well. So those are two that, probably not this go around, but I think at some point soon-ish, they could get called up. Kalani Jordan, interested to see how the heel character kind of plays out a little bit, but if they just wanted to call her up, like in-ring wise, she's ready. If they call her up as a babyface, she's obviously ready. I think the heel character needs 6 months to kind of work through, figure out the depths of that character, the motivations, all of that, and see what you have in her. Kind of overdo it the way they did with Roxy, who was ready for a couple of years if you were going to call her up as a babyface, but she has this heel run that really rounds out the character. So now even if she goes as a babyface, there's a little bit more of a dynamic character there that she can draw on. I feel like Kalani would benefit from the same thing, but I've also been saying that her, Trick, and Carmella would be a fun grouping just because she has been starting to pair up with Trick Williams a little bit on vignettes and everything. She'd be ready for that tomorrow if she could. It is just, I feel like there is another layer of ready to get to with her. And then Sol Ruka. I think she's main ready now, but like if this were the main roster, her and Zarya would be a year-long feud building to the next WrestleMania. We will see. We probably still get a lot of that, but like in-ring wise, look-wise, all of it, she is ready to go in that sort of a way. So NXT, significantly more on the women's side than on the men's side, have quite a few that are ready to get called up and make a real impact on the WWE roster. So we'll see what happens coming off of Saturday's main event and John Cena's last match. That's going to do it for the show today. A really long stream. Even if you weren't with the stream for the show's starting soon part, well, we're still coming up on 2.5 hours. So a lot of fun chatting live with you guys again. One more time, I am going to be on radio this week, so the live schedule pares down significantly, but I am going to try to do a little bit more after I get home from those instead of just kind of lounging around all day, because I miss this. I love talking about all these different things with all of you guys on my own platform where I can swear and shit like that. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. Again, we are presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca. Get all that Calgary swag in time for Christmas, and swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PK Primetime. Some great flavors, some really good gear as well, like the shirts and the shaker bottles. You guys have seen me with them before. I still have a shaker bottle before the rebrand that they did. The stuff works, and it works really, really well. So swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PK Primetime for 25% off. Keep it locked to my social medias, so you know the next time we are going live. If you want more from Couch Potato Diary, check for us, podcast form. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a review while you're there. It helps us, the show out greatly. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Hit like, leave a comment, and the notification bell so you know when we're going live. Twitch, hit the follow button. Same thing on Kick. And if you have the funds, subscription or the tip jar would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. This has been a long one. It's time for me to go, and I'll talk to you all later.